now recording. So let's move you all up here so I can see. And I will share my screen down here. Okay. Okay, everybody sees Revit, or Revit, Rhino. I always say Revit, Rhino. All right. So we're going to go over some more surface manipulation and some solid manipulation. So I talked to a few folks in the desk crits last week about filleting. Everybody kind of knew what that was, but I just wanted to go over some of those tools really quickly. There's a lot of them. We'll just touch on them basically. So imagine you have, the plainest version of a fillet is when you have, I'm going to draw a surface down there. I'm going to draw a vertical surface off of this. They're kind of, they're connected at a 90-degree angle, nothing special. But let's say we wanted to fillet that. When fillet, if nobody knows, is kind of rounding that edge. A chamfer is creating like an angled edge. The tool the primary way to get to that is the tool right next to the surface tool. And there's all these different things you can do. We're not going to go through all of them. I encourage people to explore them. We're going to go over kind of the primary ones. So the fillet surface is the plainest version of that. So you would click one surface, click a second surface, and then it's made a fillet on those two. And if you saw, if I undo that and I do it again, there is a radius command. So let's say I wanted this radius to be, if I click on the radius, I wanted it to be 20 feet. Click on the first surface, click on the second surface, and then I get a much, more drastic, fillet there. Pretty simple, nothing crazy about it. I'm sure you've all seen it before. You can fillet curves, lines, all kinds of things. Another version of this tool that's kind of useful, or can be useful, is there is a variable radius fillet, right? So you can kind of choose two different radii for your filleting of those two surfaces. So if I select my first surface, my second surface, it's going to give you these handles. It's going to start at 1 foot because that's where my radius was up here, but I can come in here and I can choose, I can start to stretch, let me come down here, I can start to stretch this radius out. And I think there's probably no, there isn't. So I can stretch that radius like that and come on this side, and I can choose a different radius for this side, let's say something like this, and when I hit enter or right click, it creates that fillet. And if you forget to trim it like I did, you can use the trim command. So I just typed trim, choose the cutting object, trim that, and create kind of a more unique fillet, right? If you don't want to do what I just did, there is an option when you create, let me just undo. Come on, computer. Undo, there we go. I will choose that command again, select my surface, get my handles again. I can pull that handle out like so, pull this handle out like so. And then before I right click and kind of accept those two radii, there is a trim and join command right here that if I click will change it to a yes, and if I right click now it'll automatically trim and join those two into one continuous surface. So that could be useful for some of you who have kind of rounded corners or variable rounded corners. Those are the two main things. There's a chamfer, which does the same thing, and there's a variable chamfer, which it's the difference is it's not a curve; it's an angled chamfer. There's some other things here, like blend surface could be useful for some of you. Blend surface, I just selected. It wants you to pick two edges, right? So let's say I wanted to blend this surface, or this edge here into this edge here. I would click my first edge, click my second edge, and it will do it'll kind of start to blend it'll do a a version of blending those surfaces together, right? You can kind of start to, and it also numbers them. So you can see how it numbers this edge as 1 and this edge as 2. And you have a column that says 1 and 2, right? So you can start to adjust how they are, you could go down something like that. You can kind of change different ways of how they are connecting to each other. You can also kind of manually adjust some of these dots and change how this is kind of coming together. It's running a little slow. There we go. So that could blend, when you have kind of a surface, you're trying to blend two curves together, this could be a start of how you might do that. And there's some other options. Oh, I'm still playing with that line. There's some other options down here that you can also play with. It's still controlling control points. So yeah, anyway, blend surface is another option to kind of do, blend two surfaces together. It just takes those edges and kind of lofts between them and allows you to manipulate them. Offset surface, pretty self-explanatory. So a lot of these can be pretty useful. I haven't used all of these tools, but I would encourage you to explore some of them, but those are kind of the more useful ones for right now. So I would advise, looking into those. I mentioned it to a bunch of you on Tuesday about filleting. So that's the first one. Now some more fun ones. Well, I think those are pretty fun, but there's some other ones that we can start to play with. So has anybody used a command called network surface? Or heard of that command before? This is a pretty, I think this might be one of the more powerful tools you could use with your objects right now. I mean, there's, like I said, hundreds, if not thousands of tools in Rhino, but this is one of probably the more powerful ones that you can use currently. So a network surface basically allows you, the quick explanation is it allows you to draw kind of edges of a surface. So if you have an idea of what your object looks like and you have like some edges that you want to hit, it's basically a more intense version of a loft command. The loft kind of just takes curves and interpolates a surface between those curves. Network surface allows you to do kind of a little bit more advanced version of that. So I'll show you a simple version for now. Or well, not really a simple version. I'll just show you a version. So I'm just going to draw kind of a plan. So I'm imagining if my object was sitting on the ground, where it's touching the ground. Let's say I imagine what that looks like. I'm going to turn off my ortho. I'm just going to kind of draw some sort of interesting curve. My computer's running very slow. Just pull this out a little bit. And I'm just going to mirror this. So I'm going to select that curve, type mirror. I'm going to mirror it like that. I'm going to move this guy down a little. So let's say that's how my object touched the ground, right? That's kind of the planned version of that object. Network surface works in two ways. It kind of needs to interpolate an up-down direction and a left-to-right direction. So up-down is in plan, top to bottom. So I have a top. Let's, in this version, this is the top, this is the bottom. But I need to kind of tell it what that center point is, what that center curve is. So I don't only need a plan, I kind of also need a section. So let me just kind of get the center line of these two. I'm going to close these off just to kind of get a center point here, like so. And I'm going to just copy this up. Let's say, turn on my ortho. So I'm kind of drawing a section now, right? So let's just say my section is a curve. So I'm going to draw a curve that has a start and end point. So I'm going to start it on this center. I'm going to start it here, go here, and then I'm going to come in this direction. Turn off my, come on, oh. There we go. Let's say let's say that's the curve. Delete that. I'll delete this. So now I have a top to bottom. Oh, that's not really. Let's move this. Move this point over. And move all these points over. Like so. Okay, so let's say that's my center point of my curve. So this is, you know, the top, the middle, and the bottom. Now I need to define the left to right. So I could use these flat lines, but let's do something maybe a little more interesting than that. So let's just do 2 more curves. I'll do a curve like so. Maybe turn my O-snap back on. Not sure why my computer's running so slow tonight. Go up and up. Charlie, welcome to class. Come on. Not sure what's going on there. 1 second. Not sure what's going on there. Let me turn back my O-snap on. Let me turn this curve on. Let's draw the middle curve then. This is really frustrating. My computer kind of is jumping a little and can't quite get it to work the way I want. So let's draw that curve like that. And for the sake of time, I will not draw the other curves. We'll just leave. So let's say that's kind of a section cut. I don't know what this object is, some sort of weird animal. And this is kind of the basic outline of my shape that I want. If I use the network surface, so I just type in network surface. I don't actually know where it is in the selection box, but if I click network surface, it wants me to select all the curves in the network. I can select all these curves, and then I hit enter, and then it kind of starts to interpolate what this shape might look like by using the basically all of these lines as a guide, right? So it's using the top and the bottom as kind of its plan. It's using this center point as kind of the high point of that, and this section cut and the straight lines on either end. So it starts as a straight line, morphs into this curve, and morphs back into a straight line on this end. Similar to the fillet, it'll give you all these points, A, B, C, D, which are then listed here, and you can start to change how it interprets these some of these points, which I'm not seeing a lot of change in it, but there's a slight modification here and there. You know, position being kind of the tight version where it's hitting all of them kind of on the nose exactly, and the loose being a little bit more, giving it a little bit more freedom to interpolate the curve. So if I hit OK, I get this crazy shape that then may or may not be what I want. So I imagine that you all could start to draw kind of edges, or imagining a few different section cuts through your objects or a piece of them, and start to kind of create your object in this way. So I think this could be a powerful tool for everyone. So the primary thing, and I can see if I can find a video or something, that if you do not have some of those curves, so let me just move this off to the side. If, for example, let's say I don't have that curve, and I try network surface, it may try to do it, but it may give me an error. And I select those. I did it. Let me delete that, see what happens. Basically, there's a version of this where it kind of won't make any sort of interpolation, so I just made a plain surface. So if you don't have all the curves, you basically have to like imagine this top down. So looking in your top view, you need to have curves that are kind of going from top down and then left to right. So you're imagining it in both directions and then using that tool to make that curve. The other tool that's kind of neat that could be useful once you have maybe parts of your object. So let's say this is a piece of our object and we had some other weirdness going on. I'm just going to make something up. We'll just do an extrusion like this. We'll add some weird, you know, a cone. Like so. Like that. And let's say this for some reason was part of your object, some sort of circus type object. And you had them all made and everything was kind of close to what you wanted, but not quite, you know, it needed some modification. There's another tool called Cage Edit. So if I type in cage, you'll see Cage Edit pop up. I can select that and I can say, what are my captive objects? So it's kind of it's a little intense. It's Cage Edit and captive objects. But if I select my captives and I right click, you'll see that so it asks you a few other things. Select a control object. So I can pick I usually just do a bounding box. So you can see here there's a bounding box. So I'm going to do that. My coordinate system, you can pick which kind of coordinate system. I'm just going to pick the C-plane for now. And then it asks you what your cage parameters are. And this is how many points you want. Basically what this is going to do, we've kind of gone over control points a little bit. I'm sure you've edited them or used them. When you select an object and you turn on the control points, you can kind of move the control points around on that object. What this does is create a cage of control points that controls all three of these objects simultaneously. So I'm just going to keep it standard for what it comes up with right now. So 4 in the Y direction, 4 in the X direction, 4 in Z, and keep all their degrees. Currently, you can obviously mess with these, add more control points in different to get different results. But if I click enter, you'll see that a cage, quote unquote, a bounding box pops up around all these objects. If I select this box, I got the last command there. So the box now has this kind of cage that is 4 points tall, 4 points wide, and 4 points long. If you change those 4 to 5, 6, 7, obviously that's what it changes. But now if I click on these points and I start to manipulate them, you'll see that all of the objects are affected by, you know, objects closer relative to that point are started to be manipulated. So I can start to pull those, I can pull these around. I mean, I wouldn't suggest using this as like, I'm gonna model my whole object this way. I'm gonna model a box and then two boxes and then start to pull. You know, if one of you are like a clay sculptor, you would be good at that. But it could be good for some kind of tweaks towards the end where you're just trying to, you know, manipulate or maybe you mesh two objects together. They're not quite exactly the shape that you want and they need to align a little differently. They can be manipulated as such. I believe that I'm still in the cage. I can release. There's a cage, release from cage. So we can let them free back into the wilderness. If we click on them and they are now, this bounding box I don't believe is useful anymore once it's there, and they are free from the cage and they're back to being editable onto themselves. So that can be pretty useful. Two other commands I wanted to touch on are pretty simple but can also be pretty powerful. I'm going to just draw a kind of little tower here. And there are two commands called twist and one called twist and the other called taper. I'm just going to kind of create myself a midpoint here to work off of. So twist does exactly what you imagine it to do. So I type in twist, I select the objects I'd like to twist, So I hit, you can do multiple objects. I choose the start of my axis. So I'm just going to choose this center point here. Move this over so I can do a kind of straight line down. And then I'm going to do this from the top. So now I'm kind of creating the angle that is my twist. Like, how much am I going to twist? So I'm, imagine when you're rotating an object, you have a start point, and then you pick that second point, and then you rotate that object. So I'm basically picking my reference point, and I can start to twist this object. Turn off my ortho as much or as little as I want. When I click the end and I'm done, I now have kind of a twisted cube. So that's one option for some, maybe some of the objects that have some sort of like a shape that's kind of in some sort of revolution. And then the other one, this might be useful for some folks, is the taper. And the taper is similar, but different because it tapers. So we'll draw another little tower here. Uh-oh, battery's gonna die. 1 second. Let me plug in here. 1 second, guys, sorry. Sorry about that. Now we're plugged in. Maybe that's why my computer wasn't running so well. So taper tool, similar. I'm just going to type in taper. Select. Actually, before I do that, I'm going to draw myself a line similarly so I can get the center point of this. Type in taper. Select my object. I hit enter. Right click. I'm going to click the start of my axis. Turn on my ortho, end of my axis. Oops, that's not what I wanted. Let me start over. Taper, select objects, select the center, down here like so, and then I'll select my, let me turn off my OSNAP for a second. I'll pick my distance that I want to start tapering from, and then I can taper this object out like so, and create some an object like that. And then let's say I wanted to shift some of these things. You can do the Control Shift click, and I can start to manipulate how this Control Shift click is one of my more favorite things in Rhino. So you can manipulate all of these things with that in these surfaces. So taper, twist. Anybody have any questions or concerns right out the gate? I'm going to try to go over some sub-D tools. So those of you who have Rhino 7 will have this new toolbar at the top called sub-D tools. So like I said, I posted a video on the playlist. I think you all should be able to post to the playlist. I would encourage you. I actually gave it to James, the other professor of his class, so hopefully he was going to share it with them so that they can also post videos as well. And hopefully we'll all learn something this semester. So sub-D tools are basically objects that have kind of a little bit more manipulation built into them from the start. So on these objects, for example, when I Control Shift click, I kind of select this whole surface. If I Control Shift click, but if I have surfaces that are curved, I can't Control Shift click. Maybe, oh no, you can Control Shift click them, but I can't modify short of control points a individual piece of that, surface. Sub-D tools kind of allow you to do that a little more. They're a little more advanced and allow you to manipulate them. They're actually a different kind of object. They're like sub-D objects. So they're different They're different than polymeshes or solids or surfaces. They're their own thing. So if I could convert some of these things into sub-D. Anywho, So if I create a sub D object, I'll create just a cylinder here, and this is kind of what the video that I showed has. You'll see that it already has kind of a rounded feel to it. It is, you know, it already has kind of a chamfered, or not chamfered, filleted surface. But let's say on the video that you'll see, and you'll look up other ones, let's say I wanted to make this surface kind of have a hole in it. These other ones I may have to, I can delete these, but nothing changes when I delete that surface on here, and I have to delete this whole surface. On these, if I Control-Shift-Click, I actually have the ability to select individual tiles of that top surface. So even if I just wanted to delete these two, I could delete those two. If I wanted to delete all of them, I could select all of them. Oh, I'm selecting edges. So I'm just holding Control-Shift, and I'm clicking all of these, and I am deleting that. And you'll see that it kind of gets rid of that the fillet automatically. I can then so on the video that I posted, they basically make a cup. I'm not going to go through all the steps of making that cup, but there is where is it? I always can't remember. One of these tools. Here's an offset. One of them is an offset. Convert. Crease. Sub D loft. Maybe it's not in here. Oh, offset. I don't know why I can't find that in that link, but there's an offset sub D. I can click the link here. Or so I typed in offset sub D. It's asking me to pick the object. I right click. It shows me arrows of which direction it's going to offset. I can flip all of those arrows. So let's say I want to offset in rather than out. And then I can type in a distance. Let's call it 2 feet. I think this thing's enormous. So let me do 10 feet. And enter. That's a little more than I thought. Let me try that again. Offset sub D. Select object, offset, enter. I'll do it for 3 feet. Oh, I went outwards. That's fine. Flip all. Right click. So now I've offsetted that surface. So if I turned on the ghosted view, one thing I don't understand is it sometimes makes this copy that I don't fully understand yet, but I think there's probably a way to make it not do that. So I just moved it and selected it, but you'll see that it's offsetted that whole surface and kind of created a cup thing here. There's some other tools you can use in here where you can add or remove creases. So I can add a crease, I believe. So this is, if you tab, it'll show you a kind of blockier version of the object. But you can also select edges. So I can add a crease here between these two edges. So I select all those interior edges, I right click. Oh, no changes made. What did I do? Add crease. Maybe I have to select this. Oh, maybe it's that what I want to do. I saw it, my fault. I don't think I wanted to select the surfaces here, not the. Select mesh. Interesting. Not sure why it's not working. Let me try just selecting the outside one. No changes made. Not sure what's happening. So let me try something else. Oh, maybe that's what I want to do. I want to delete a crease, not add one. So let me select this again. My apologies. Just holding Control Shift. Got the wrong one in there. I'm going to delete that. I'm going to remove a crease. That's what we wanted. Okay, my fault. So I've removed the crease and removed that angle, and I now have a more rounded edge here. I'll turn this back onto shaded. And you can see that it's kind of a rounded edge there. I can even select, there's a way to, I think if I double click, yeah, if you double click on a curve, it'll kind of grab all of those ones in a kind of connected together, and I can kind of modify this cup, and you can see it, that crease changing as I move these around. Some other things I think I can. So some other cool things you can do. Let me add a crease. Select mesh. Let me add a crease to these. What does that do? I'm not, you know, admittedly have only used this a little. I've only recently gotten the Rhino 7. Interesting. I'm not sure. I can't remember how they add something in here. I don't remember what the button was. There's all kinds of stuff. Insert edge loop. I don't think that's what I want. Well, I'm not sure. So there's other things you can do. I can start to pull pieces of those surfaces. So I have a little bit more manipulation over the surfaces than you maybe had in the past. So you can start to create some, you know, interesting things. There's also a pretty handy command called bridging, where you can bridge between two things. So I can select the first set of the first surface. You know, you do these things whenever you're not in front of a crowd, and then it's not a problem. But then you got people, edges or faces. It's weird. Not sure why. Here we go. Why does it only select? So I selected one, selected the other, and then it'll start to try to assume how to bridge those two things together. That's not a really good example. A better example might be that I thought was kind of interesting is I'm going to try real quickly. We're kind of already to our limit here to create. I'm drawing in perspective. That's probably not what I want to do. I create pipes around these curves. So a pipe is just, you know, a very simple version of a. Oh, I already did it. So let me. I'm gonna do that. Make it a little crazy, a little bigger. I'm gonna do a pipe. So select my rail. I'm gonna make my radius 10 feet. 10 feet at the end. Enter. So let's say I had a bunch of, you know, pipes on your object coming into but they were all different sizes. So let's say this one is this big, this one's that big, this one's like this one's like this. And I needed to connect all these together in some miraculous way and kind of create some sort of connection between them. I can convert them, I believe, to a sub D object. Convert sub offset sub D. Trying to remember how I did it. Crap. I don't know if I did what I wanted it to do. Let me try to. Yeah, it's not what I want. How do I sub D 2 sub D, that might be what I want. Okay, yeah, so I can select these objects, right click. You can mess with those divisions, but it's now converted these 3 things into a sub D object. So if I come in here now and I wanted to connect them, I can, let me just move this guy, that's probably fine. So I can now use that bridge command and I can start to imagine connecting these together. So I can select these edges and I can select the same edges on this one. And then I can right click, turn off my caps. It's not happening the way I want it to. Hold on a second. I think I have 2 objects on top of each other. Okay. That's what I don't fully understand why it kind of doubles those objects up sometimes. I don't know what that is. Okay, so let's try that. Let's try this one more time. Let me try the bridge command one more time. I won't belabor the point. Select that side. Select this side. Oh, am I still doing pipes? Oh, I was clicking the pipe command. I'm sorry. Where's the bridge command? That's what we want. That's why we were all problematic here. I was clicking the wrong command. What I want to create is something like that. But so I select the bridge command. I can select my edges here. I can select these edges here. Right click. Oh man, I'm not doing this so hot. I'm trying to rush. I apologize. Start over. Take a breath. Bridge. Select the first side of the object. Right click. That's my first set. Select the second set. Now I right click, and you'll see that it starts to connect those 2 objects together. I believe there is a bridge options here where you can modify some of these commands, adding segments, adding creases. You can have them joined. So I'm just gonna hit OK, and then I can do the same thing, bridge for this side to this side. So I'm basically selecting my selecting the edges. Why is it not letting me select? I'm having troubles. It's weird. Let me try again. And then after that I will there. It let me select it there, but it doesn't let me select it otherwise. Alright guys, I know I said I give up, but I want to try one more time. Pipe, select rail, boop, boop, boop. Sub D, 2 sub D, boop, boop. Going to delete the poly surface. Okay, let's try this again. Select my first set of surfaces. There we go. I don't know what was going on with it before. Select that side, select this side. I can now bridge. Oh man, I keep forgetting it. It wants you to select the first set, right click or hit enter, and then select the second set. I keep rushing to thinking of selecting all of them. So now it starts to connect those. I'll just accept that. And you can do one last time to finish our little tutorial here. I can pick these sides, connect them to, oops, see I did it again. There we go. Select these sides. And I can do that. And you can start to create some interesting objects with the sub D tool. I think there's also like a sub D patch, so I could patch this top. I don't think the regular patch will work. It might work. Okay, that one worked. So you can kind of start to create some interesting objects with that. And as always, you can, with the sub D, you can kind of select those individual. I can join all these together. I actually have to make this as not a sub D right now. And convert that to sub D. Okay, so that one had an interesting, so that's why I think there is a sub D patch. Oh, a sub fill hole, so that might be what we want. Patch style automatic. There we go. That's looking more like a thing. And then I can come back in and manipulate this however I like. So as you can see, there's some pretty powerful tools. If you have the Rhino, if you have Rhino 7, this might be very valuable for your objects. You can even manipulate these edges here. So cool. Not all of you have it, so I didn't want to focus too much on it, even though I feel like I spent half the time on that trying to struggle through. But it's a pretty powerful tool. I think there's some definitely useful things in there to explore. I've not explored all of them yet, but I think those of you who do have that might be able to use it. Any questions? Concerns? Nothing. Okay. So I'm going to, if that's the case, I'm going to, did anybody learn anything? Did we learn a tool that we're like, oh wow, that's going to be very useful to me?
I learned something.
Who's that? Cole learned something? Perfect.
Yes.
I got a thumbs up from Earl. The rest of you are just experts and
learned something too, Dan.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Well, I will say I learned a lot. I got a lot of participation in my little history lesson today. So let me stop.